The time by Carrie Chris is 6 p.m. Time for CBX Business News. The Business News Headlines is brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible.
Global capital realigns, labor constraints shape policies, and central banks stay on hold. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Wednesday, January 28, 2026. I'm Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, Oppenheimer says global capital is shifting, with Jamaica well placed to benefit as investors rebalance towards emerging and frontier markets. Also ahead, Grenada points to labor shortages as a potential driver for non-binding talks with the United States. And later, the Bank of Canada holds policy interest rate at 2.25%, but warns heightened trade risks complicate growth and inflation outlook. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
Wealth is not simply counted in dollars or cents, but in the time we spend with love, in love, giving love. Wealth is not simply a means to an end. It is the means to live out loud. Wealth is more than money. It's about family, the memories you create, the legacy you leave behind, and your ability to enjoy life in the moment. It's also about seeing the QMax possibilities and seizing investment opportunities to achieve the future you want and deserve. Which is why QMax Wealth will focus on your investments so you can experience more. Because true wealth is truly more. To start investing today, call 876-926-7767.
Enjoy peace of mind knowing that your hard-earned money is protected by the JDIC. That's right, the JDIC through the Deposit Insurance Scheme guarantees up to $1.2 million of your deposits in commercial banks, merchant banks, and building societies. This means your deposits, such as your savings and checking accounts, are covered. Rest easy, knowing that your deposits are secure. Your deposits always protected. For more information, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at JDICJAM, or visit our website at www.jdic.org.
JDIC, protecting deposits for you and me.
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with Jamaica's growing appeal as global capital rebalances. Jamaica is emerging as a prime beneficiary of shifting global capital flows as investors rebalance portfolios towards growth markets. Managing Director and Chief Investment Strategist at Oppenheimer, John Stolzfus, says global investors are not retreating from international markets, but recalibrating exposure in what he described as reglobalization following pandemic-era supply chain disruptions.
Lately, one of the things people talk about is deglobalization. We don't think that's the case. We think it's a reglobalization. And it came after COVID when it was recognized. I think everybody sort of awakened to the fact that in terms of production of many things, all roads led to one country, to China. And so when this was, everything got thrown out of whack by COVID, the world was really turned into an additional tailspin when many businesses and communities were shuttered around the world. And so the reglobalization is very simply likely to be exceptionally beneficial for the emerging markets, especially those that are neighbors of the U.S.
That was Managing Director and Chief Investment Strategist at Oppenheimer, John Stolfus. Central banks across the Caribbean are warning that economic policy making is entering a far more volatile era, one where certainty is fading, shocks are frequent, and flexibility is now essential. Governor of the Central Bank of Belize, Karim Michael, says traditional economic models are being tested by a world marked by persistent uncertainty.
It's really an unpredictable environment. And with this unpredictability, what does that do for the models that we have built? How we actively apply inflation targeting or anchoring our exchange rates. These are built on years of macroeconomic theory. Should we question these theories now? And the question is an absolute yes. The applicability of these may have no place in today's world.
That was Governor of the Central Bank of Belize, Karim Michael. Meanwhile, Senior Deputy Governor of the Bank of Jamaica, BOJ, Wayne Robinson, says central banks can no longer rely on precise forecasts, as overlapping shocks have made traditional projections unreliable.
In the past, one could always speak confidently about our central projections. Our statisticians and econometricians like to boast, well, I am 95% confident in my projection. Now, I don't know how many of them, including me, can boast of that now. Because really, the crystal ball is just murky. So we have to move beyond these ideas of that there's a central tendency and that we really know the future. And instead, we have to be thinking about range of possibilities.
That was Senior Deputy BOJ Governor Wayne Robinson. Caribbean capital markets are not short of money. They are short of movement. That was the blunt assessment emerging from a high-level panel discussion recently, where industry leaders warned that a deeply entrenched buy-and-hold investment culture is quietly suppressing secondary market trading across the region.
Jamaica's capital markets is characterized by large institutional investors. These are the pension funds, our collective investment schemes, and insurers. And what we have observed is that they tend to have a buy-and-hold investment mandate or strategy. And as you can appreciate, having a buy-and-hold culture suppresses secondary trading.
That was Director of Corporate Solutions and Investment Banking, Scotia Investments Jamaica, Sarah Cummings, providing that assessment. Jamaica's post-hurricane recovery is now squarely in the hands of the financial sector, as NCB Capital Markets and CIBC First Caribbean signal a major push to finance the country's rebuilding effort following the devastation caused by Hurricane Melissa. Senior executives from both institutions say the scale of infrastructure damage, estimated at nearly $9 billion, will require innovative, non-traditional financing models to accelerate reconstruction and strengthen economic resilience. Manager for Organization and Structuring at NCB Capital Markets, Alex Johnson, says they are actively seeking infrastructure projects to deploy capital.
NCB has an asset base of $2.4 trillion. We also sit on very huge balance sheets, so we have a lot of cash to deploy. And since then, we've been aggressively looking for infrastructure type investments to deploy those funds. So what we'll say is for any infrastructure type company that is out there that is seeking financing, please reach out to us. We are really looking for those type of investments. I think we have a very good track record of executing on those type of transactions.
That was Manager for Organization and Structuring at NCB Capital Markets, Alex Johnson. CIBC Caribbean echoed that position, stressing that rebuilding cannot rely on cookie-cutter lending.
Infrastructure that has a social impact, so we are very big into that. And that kind of funding, that kind of financing requires a lot of innovation. It won't be a cookie-cutter approach to getting those things done.
That was Associate Director for Investment Banking at CIBC Caribbean, Velmore Stewart. Fosrich Company Limited has strengthened its boardroom with the appointment of former Jamaica Stock Exchange JSE Managing Director Dr. Marlene Street Forrest, effective January 9, 2026. In a shareholder notice dated January 23, Fosrich announced that Dr. Street Forrest will join its board of directors, adding decades of capital market leadership and governance expertise to the electrical and renewable energy company. Dr. Street Forrest recently retired from the JSE, where she served as the longest tenured managing director. During her tenure, she played a central role in expanding the exchange's product offerings, advancing junior market listings, and broadening shareholder participation across Jamaica's capital markets. Fosrich's board says it is confident that Dr. Street Forrest's experience in leadership and professional insight will enhance board effectiveness and support the company's long-term growth and strategic direction, particularly as it continues to scale within Jamaica's energy and infrastructure space. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Wednesday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 110 stocks, of which 48 advanced, 41 declined, and 21 traded firm. Leading the winners are 138 Student Living Jamaica Variable Preference, MPC Caribbean Clean Energy, Mailpack Group, and Mayberry Jamaican Equities, while leading the losers are Medical Disposables and Supplies, Caribbean Cream, Salada Foods Jamaica, and Pulse Investments. The main index advanced by 3,888.79 points to close at 345,855.22 points. The junior market index advanced by 35.98 points to close at 3,384.88 points.
And it's time for Market Education Feature, brought to you by CARICRIS. Regional ratings, global standard.
In today's market education feature, we're talking about natural resources. Natural resources are materials that occur naturally on Earth without human intervention. They include biological and mineral resources such as water, sunlight, soil, fossil fuels, and metals like gold, silver, and copper. These resources are essential to daily life and economic activity. Every economy depends on natural resources in some way, with some countries relying heavily on them for stability and growth. Industries such as transportation, manufacturing, and energy all require raw materials like iron ore, aluminum, oil, and gas, making natural resources a cornerstone of global trade and economic development.
The Market Education Feature was brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next.
The local news is brought to you by Diamond Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses. And Pulse Investments.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. Grenada's widening labor and skills shortages are forcing the government to examine non-traditional workforce options. Speaking at a post-cabinet press briefing on Tuesday, Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell says cabinet is considering signing a non-binding memorandum of understanding (MOU) with the United States, US, for the possible transfer of third country nationals to plug this workforce gap.
We already have general information as to the skills gaps and the shortages in Grenada and the challenges. We have the Ministry of Labour, which processes work permits on an ongoing basis. And so we have data that tells us which sectors of the Grenadian economy are requiring work permits the most and the areas that they are most needed. We have labour workforce surveys that are ongoing that tells us everything from the unemployment rate to the skill gaps and the shortages. We have our business community here who comes to us frequently, either asking for large-scale waiver of work permits or reduced work permits based on particular areas.
He, however, stressed that the proposed MOU is strictly a framework agreement.
We are not suggesting, and I want to make this clear, we are not suggesting that this MOU is the answer or even an answer. We are saying it is the opportunity to explore.
That was Prime Minister of Grenada, Dickon Mitchell. Anguilla's digital economy continues to scale rapidly, with the island now surpassing 1 million .ai domains under management. Minister of Infrastructure, Communications and Technology, Jose Vanterpool, while providing an update on Monday, says last December's domain registrations generated over US $20 million.
As it relates to revenue from the .ai domain, in December of 2025, the domain registrations would have brought in $20.6 million, and that brings overall revenue collections for the entire year of 2025 to $230.5 million.
Beyond digital revenue, the minister also flagged a strong uptick in aviation activity.
Within our aviation sector, the new electronic flight permit system that we have introduced is functioning extremely well. And to put this into context, in January of 2025, a total of 127 flight permits were issued, bringing in a total of $57,000 in revenue to the government of Anguilla. As of today, where we stand for January, with still a week left to go, we have issued around 200 permits, which has brought in a total of $75,000.
That was Anguilla's Minister of Infrastructure, Communications and Technology, Jose Vanterpool. Tourism-generated revenues in Nevis surged sharply at the start of 2026, with collections from the Tourism Development Levy, TDL, rising by nearly 50% year-on-year. Premier Mark Brantley says TDL receipts for January totaled approximately $774,000 EC dollars, a significant increase when compared with the same month last year.
That Tourism Development Levy collection for January, which would reflect the activity in December, was $774,733.15, representing a 16.3% increase over budgeted expectations and a whopping 48.8% increase compared to the same period last year. This marks one of the strongest January performances on record and reflects, of course, the impact of the increased TDL rate, but also reflects the robust visitor activity.
That was Premier of Nevis, Mark Brantley. In other news, Dominican Republic's Superintendency of Electricity, SIE, has brought into force a new regulation establishing for the first time a comprehensive framework for renewable energy user generators connecting to the national grid. The resolution standardizes application timelines, technical standards, and compensation under a mandatory digital process. Utilities must approve feasibility within 10 working days, followed by inspection, smart meter installation, and grid connection agreements. Installed capacity will now be linked to a customer's historical electricity use, while stricter power quality and safety standards will apply. Under a revised net metering system, excess electricity will be credited monthly, with unused balances paid annually at the reference price set by the National Energy Commission. The reform comes as more than 30 companies compete to develop 600 megawatts of renewable capacity, reinforcing regulatory certainty as a catalyst for clean energy investment. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 22 securities, of which 2 advanced, 4 declined, and 16 traded firm. Today's winners are National Enterprises and A.S. Bryden & Sons Holdings, while leading the losers are the West Indian Tobacco Company, Trinidad and Tobago NGL, Massey Holdings, and First Citizens Group Financial Holdings. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index declined by 0.42 points to close at 1,410.24. The Composite Index declined by 0.22 points to close at 967.47. The Cross-Listed Index remained at 69.04. The SME Index remained at 92.68. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. What you put in is what you get out. What you put in is what you get out, yeah. Build up your body, boost up your brain. Take on the world now, say bye-bye pain. Caribbean Dreams, instant turmeric tea, be good to you. Caribbean Dreams, instant turmeric tea. Distributed by Amalgamated Distributors Limited.
Serious about building Jamaica? Build with solid PVC pipes and conduits, manufactured in Jamaica by Phosphate, made to the highest standard. Solid PVC pipes and conduits are made in Jamaica by Jamaicans for Jamaicans. Available at hardware stores across the island. Take some solid advice, support our economy, and build well. Buy solid PVC pipes. Next time, ask for solid brand PVC pipes and conduits. Call our distributors or Phosphate at 876-937-5099.
Welcome back. In international news, Europe's failure to fully integrate its single market is now costing the region its strategic independence. That's according to former Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta. Speaking during a visit to Washington, Letta warned that while the European Union operates with a single currency, it still functions across 27 fragmented energy systems, telecom networks, and financial markets.
The fact that Europe is not one, but 27 in these fields is, in my view, the true reason of the lack of competitiveness, and on the other side is the true reason of the dependencies. Europe is very dependent, and in the world in which we are today, being dependent is not a good idea.
You're right.
So we have to work to be more independent, to strengthen our strategic autonomy, and to complete the single market. This is, in my view, the only recipe for the future of Europe.
Letta says this fragmentation has left Europe lagging behind the United States and China, particularly in capital-intensive sectors.
We are sending as gift jobs in the US, in China, in other countries out of Europe. The fragmentation is a cost and has a cost.
That was former Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta. Staying with global economic uncertainty, The Bank of Canada has held its policy interest rate steady at 2.25%, but warns rising trade and geopolitical risks are widening the range of possible outcomes for the economy. Speaking during the bank's monetary policy report earlier today, Governor Tiff Macklem says the decision reflects an economy adjusting to persistent U.S. trade restrictions, with growth expected to remain modest and inflation close to the bank's 2% target.
Today, Governing Council maintained our policy interest rate at 2.25%. Our forecast for economic growth and inflation in Canada has not changed significantly since our October projection. As the Canadian economy continues to adjust to U.S. trade restrictions, we expect the economy to grow modestly and inflation to stay close to our 2% target. However, uncertainty around our forecast is heightened. The range of possible outcomes is wider than usual. U.S. trade policy remains unpredictable, and geopolitical risks are elevated.
The central bank projects a GDP growth of over 1% in 2026 and almost 2% in 2027.
Overall, economic growth is expected to pick up gradually. The Bank of Canada projects annual average GDP growth of 1.1% in 2026 and 1.5% in 2027, broadly in line with our October projection.
That was Governor for the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem. And that uncertainty is also spilling into currency and commodity markets. Silver held near US $115 an ounce on Wednesday, hovering at fresh record highs as safe haven demand intensified, driven by a sharply weaker US dollar and strong physical and retail buying. Market sentiment was reinforced by comments from US President Donald Trump, who dismissed the dollar's slide to four-year lows, strengthening expectations that the administration is tolerant of currency weakness, particularly amid renewed tariff threats and sustained pressure on the Federal Reserve. The Fed's decision to hold interest rates steady at 3.50% to 3.75% offered little near-term clarity, but continued to underscore an environment of policy uncertainty, which remains supportive for non-yielding assets like precious metals. What sets silver apart is an increasingly tight market structure, most notably in China. A dedicated silver fund was forced to suspend trading after overwhelming demand pushed its premium far above net asset value, while manufacturers redirected production away from jewelry towards 1 kilogram investment bars. This shift has constrained available supply, helping keep prices elevated. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break.
I'm trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
I'm also trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
Start a conversation with the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Check jamstockx.com for information and a list of registered stockbrokers. You can also call the Jamaica Stock Exchange at 876-967-3271 for information on how to begin. I am achieving my financial goals.
I'm achieving my financial goals.
It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Don't never, ever, ever wanna calm down. No, no, yeah, yeah.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, Oppenheimer says global capital shifting and Jamaica may be well placed to benefit. Regionally, Grenada cites labor shortages in U.S. non-binding framework talks. And internationally, Bank of Canada holds interest rates at 2.25% amid heightened trade risks. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rachelle Moncrief. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
Alexia Beckford. You're watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
Enjoy peace of mind in knowing that your hard-earned money is protected by the JDIC. That's right, the JDIC through the Deposit Insurance Scheme guarantees up to $1.2 million of your deposits in commercial banks, merchant banks, and building societies. This means your deposits, such as your savings and checking accounts, are covered. Rest easy, knowing that your deposits are secure. Your deposits always protected. For more information, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at JDICJAM or visit our website at www.jdic.org.